Five Nights at Freddy's has one of the most notorious fandoms on the entire internet, typically associated with a questionable fan art, epic cringe children, and a lacking sense of media literacy. FNAF fans are frequently clowned on for being, well, insane, to put it lightly. From a local pizza place receiving hundreds of calls, to Chuck E. Cheese employees not being allowed to even mention FNAF, to the countless appearances of the series in the real world. It's pretty safe to say that absurd moments associated with this wacky bear are anything but few and far between. And while I'm sure that there are plenty of videos out there already documenting the hilarities and hijinks that the FNAF fandom has seen over the past 9 years, I would like to create my own personal index of these moments, not just for your entertainment, but also for mine, because oh god, are some of these moments really weird. So today I would like to start a brand new series on this channel documenting what I can only describe as the craziest moments in Five Nights at Freddy's history. And I see no better way to start off the new year than to take a look back at 2023, what many people consider to be the biggest year for FNAF since it first came out, and take a look at some of the highs, the lows, and the insanity that took place last year. Everything from absurd developments within the community, to official announcements, to hilarious moments on live television.
Thank you, Chica from Five Nights at Freddy.
This, my friends, is the first installment of crazy-ass moments in Five Nights at Freddy's history. But before we begin, I think I would like to raise a toast to this new year, and to all the new memories we shall be making. Seeing as I am a FNAF tuber, I'm sure that nothing will go wrong after I ingest this lovely-looking, mysterious drink. Oh, what the fuck? 2023 started off as a very hopeful year for Five Nights at Freddy's. At this time, Ruin was set to release sometime in the year, and the movie was finally going into actual production, perhaps even releasing later this year, or at least getting a major announcement sometime, since we had yet to have an actual one at this point. Now, it's no surprise that the biggest moment for this community this year, and probably one of the biggest moments the series has seen throughout its entire existence, was the release of the long-awaited movie, only starting production 8 years after its initial announcement. Yet the events leading up to the film's debut could be classified as just as or even more insane. Either way, I think we should look back at the build-up to one of the most anticipated movies of all time, as well as the events following its release, and as such, this first section of the video will be entirely dedicated to the events surrounding the movie. But don't worry, we'll go back and talk about what also happened during this time period unrelated to the film. Now, we wouldn't hear much about this faithful movie until the very tail end of January, with a big announcement found in one of the most unexpected places. On January 31st, the official Magic the Gathering account of all things had Matthew Lillard on as a special guest. At around 13 minutes into the stream, Lillard revealed that he wasn't just signed for the first FNAF movie, but he would also be coming back in 2 confirmed sequels as well, or at the very least was signed up for a 3-movie deal. It was already known Scott wanted to make this series a trilogy, but to get direct confirmation for this fact was kind of unreal, especially in the bizarre manner in which this was revealed. But regardless, this was just one more flame fan for the movie hype, and what I would personally label as the first crazy-ass moment in Five Nights at Freddy's history of 2023. Sparse information about the movie would continue to surface as the months went by, with images from the Jim Henson's Creature Shops team, the people working on the animatronic puppetry for the movie, showing up, supposedly showcasing an eye of one of the animatronics, likely Foxy. Fast forward to February 1st, and the film officially started its filming, several actors working on the film posting about their first day, including the iconic Freddy Faz pancake posted by Piper Rubio. Jason Blum revealed the first behind-the-scenes photo, showing the production title Bad Cupcake, as well as a teaser of a character whom we now know as Doug, and the diner scene. It's crazy to think that in this very image, hidden likely just a few feet away, was such a familiar figure, and none of us had any clue. But we'll get more into that later. Also, look at this Vanny. Look at her. What is she doing there, little creature? A few other things are revealed or leaked soon after, most notably being the pizzeria sign, Josh Hutcherson beating the shit out of someone, and the exterior of Freddy's. One of the most unexpected leaks would soon surface in a rather strange way, possibly on par with the Magic the Gathering podcast, but not nearly as unrelated. An Instagram account posted photos of their tour of Jim Henson's Creature Shop. One of these photos depicting a rather withered-looking spring bunny, who we would later recognize as what the movie calls the Yellow Rabbit. Fan response to this was wild, most people freaking out over the fact that Springtrap was gonna be in the movie, and that this was direct confirmation, despite this character being a completely different color and not nearly as torn up and withered as Springtrap. Come on guys, critical thinking. Later on, Dako, Razbowski, 8-Bit Ryan, and Baz fly out to see the movie set, although no footage was shown of this trip quite yet. 4 days later, and we get our next big reveal from the man himself, Jason Blum. After making several cryptic tweets, as he is known to do, we got an actual release date, along with a teaser image of Abby and Golden Freddy, although at the time many people just assumed this to be regular Freddy. However, none of this would compare to the events that took place on a faithful May 6th, events that shook the community enough for Scott Cawthon himself to speak up about it. All of these leaks so far, while containing things not yet officially shown to us, were relatively tame compared to what would arrive on this day. See, someone had managed to leak one of the actual trailers months before it would officially surface. The community was divided on this day, with respectful people refusing to cover or distribute the trailer online, and others demanding and sharing links and files of the leaked trailer. As you can imagine, Scott was not too happy about this happening, stating that he was at the amusement park with his family when people started to inform him of the situation. He was more disappointed than anything, but shared his appreciation towards all the respectful fans doing what they could to experience this big reveal the way Scott intended. The leaker later apologized, however, this action was incredibly scummy and worthy of whatever legal action was taken. Still, this incident was a big deal, and while many content creators didn't cover it directly, many prominent figures at least still had something to say about the situation in general. This is absolutely more than worthy of being a notable crazy-ass moment in FNAF history. 10 days later, and we officially received the movie's poster, along with a teaser trailer. While not the trailer that had been leaked days prior, this was absolutely massive, the teaser dominating YouTube's trending chart and appearing in movie theaters around the world. Speaking of movie theaters, many theaters began receiving posters around this time, and would start putting them up soon after. The next few months go by faster, with not as many small reveals, but still a few very big updates, such as the final 2 trailers releasing, which revealed even more scenes, the Corey X Kenshin cameo, the yellow rabbit, and of course the "what are you so afraid of" line. Around this time is also when Universal started heavily pushing this movie marketing-wise. Giant posters were spread all around the studios. Freddy freaking Fazbear was showcased on the Horror Nights posters next to horror icons like Chucky and Frankenstein. Billboards were hung about City Walk, and even the Universal Cinema was covered head to toe in FNAF-themed decals. This movie was a big deal in the public eye, something that up until recently was rather alien for longtime fans. Even with these games becoming more mainstream in recent years, it was still rare to see stuff like this in the real world or on your television. Although not super important, I just find it really funny how Emma Tammy, the director of the movie, claims she took inspiration from Joker. Like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. Around this time, of course, the real-life location appeared in Sunset Boulevard. However, there's no interior, only an exterior to promote the film. For the better, as Scott has publicly stated he does not wish for real-life Freddy Fazbear's to exist. Seeing people pass by it and talk about the game, or watching people meet up and commune with strangers in front of the building was honestly really charming, and it was clear that a lot of people were coming together in the name of this dumb bear movie. Around this time, we also saw a lot of really amusing TV ads and sponsorships, including this weird NFL Sunday Night at Freddy's ad and, whatever this is.
Takes to survive 5 nights at Freddy's?
Well, do you have what it takes to survive 5 nights at Freddy's? Well, do you have what it takes to survive 5 nights at Freddy's?
Late night host Seth Meyers also said Friday Night at Freddy's on television, which was really funny. I have no idea why this is such a common miswording of the title, to the point where even Jason Blum made this mistake, despite being one of the main people working on its film adaptation. We did get confirmation from Markiplier that he wouldn't appear in the film, however, he was supposed to appear at the beginning as a previous night guard. He had to eventually reject the role despite wanting to make an appearance, but wasn't able to find time in his schedule, as he was very hard at work on his own video game movie adaptation, Iron Lung, which I'm sure was a worthy sacrifice, as that movie looks bomb as hell. At this point in time, the movie was getting closer and closer each day, and as such, Scott decided to make a return to his roots in the name of this long-awaited, almost mythical movie finally about to publicly release. Scott took to Reddit to announce a game adaptation of the movie, FNAF the Movie the Game, and provides a link to the game's page on GameJolt. Downloading and opening the game pretty obviously leads to a troll game, under the name of Chica in Space, a reference to Freddy in Space. I am genuinely surprised at the amount of people who somehow believe this, but either way, I missed Scott's good old trolling. However, a few others did not find this as charming as I did, as many people took to Twitter to complain about the sexual tone of the game when FNAF is a series that is enjoyed by a lot of children. The sexual tone in question is, of course, this. I mean, yeah, but Like, this is relatively inoffensive. I think we often forget that Scott Cawthon is a 45-year-old man with an absurd sense of humor. People were unreasonably angry about this for some reason. I can understand being uncomfortable with Rule 34 jokes, but no one's forcing you to play the game, and the content creators who covered it didn't have a problem with it, despite also technically having an audience of children. Either way, this sparked a very small yet short-lived controversy in the community, or I guess just mainly Twitter. It's usually just Twitter. Oh, yeah, and Love Taste Chica is canon. Hooray! Before we talk about the big day, the debut of the film, there's one last thing relating to the movie that I just have to talk about. One that doesn't particularly have one specific instance or time period, but it started around the time that theaters started receiving promotional material, such as large posters and cardboard cutouts. At the mention of that, I'm sure many of you already know what I'm about to bring up. See, around this time, the movie marketing was in full swing, and many posters were put up around cities, as well as cutouts put in movie theaters. What to most people was just a surreal sighting of animatronic cutouts spotted in the real world was an opportunity, a scheme even, to others. Just as quickly as these posters and cutouts had started showing up, they began vanishing. Although typically only for a few minutes. See, people began attempting to steal these giant posters, running off with the comically large items in their hands, usually being tailed by movie theater employees or mall cops trying to retrieve the posters. This seemed to mainly be taking place in Spanish-speaking regions, as most of the posters appear to be written in Spanish, and the release dates were set to 25th instead of the US release date of the 27th. There was, however, many instances of this happening all around the world, the funniest of which being this ethically sourced Freddy Fazbear New York poster being sold on Mercari. Ethically sourced? My brother in Christ, you fucking stole it. I do honestly think this was probably the funniest thing to come out of the movie hype, just because of how unbelievably stupid it is. Either way, each and every one of these events created one of the most massive hype trains for a movie we've ever seen, and after all this, it would be absurd to think anything could top these events after the film's release. Well, depending on who you ask, that may be wrong, because following the movie's release came even more absurdities, although more of them could be classified as triumphs rather than insane fandom moments. October 27th, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie releases. If you were on Twitter around this time, it's likely you saw this video of a fight breaking out in the movie theater while the Living Tombstone FNAF song plays during the credits. This came out 2 days before the 27th, likely in Britain, so it spoiled quite a bit of people when it came to the song's inclusion in the movie. Either way, it was just very hilarious to see. Immediately, theaters were packed with excited fans. So many people are dressed up, eating officially branded Freddy Fazbear's Pizza at their local movie theater, pointing at the screen at every reference and gasping at every kill. There is no way I can recreate the feeling of watching this movie in a packed theater full of diehard fans with just my words, but I'll at least go over the community response to some iconic moments during the film, at least in the theater that I was in. Spoiler alert if you somehow haven't seen the movie yet. One of the biggest moments in the movie was, of course, the scene that takes place in Sparky's Diner. The name of the diner itself being a clever callback to the infamous Sparky the Dog hoax all the way back in 2014. While this is more of a clever, longtime fan reference, the next shot would immediately catch the attention of anyone who is at all familiar with the franchise. Yes, of course, I'm talking about Matt Pat pulling a Lana Del Rey and working at this random diner. When I tell you my theater gave a standing ovation, I am being completely serious. This was insane. And soon after, Matt Pat would release a video describing his experience on set, in which he revealed that Markiplier was supposed to be there as the guard who got killed at the very start of the movie, as I mentioned earlier. He also stated that no one ever explicitly told him that it had to be a secret. There was no NDA, no paperwork, and no word about it from Scott or Jason Blum. However, he knew it would be much more impactful to not hint at his involvement, and instead actively tricked his entire audience into believing that he wasn't in it, usually by pretending to be jealous of the other cameos. Another thing that was really crazy about this was the fact that his name tag, Ness, is explicitly a reference to his Sans Ness video, something that Scott himself stated. Of course, some other iconic movie moments that my theater audibly reacted to included Max's death scene, to which a fair amount of people went, "Was that the bite of 87? And the Springlock scene. After William gets dragged away and the screen cuts to black, some kid screamed Sigma at the top of his lungs during the silence. Just felt that I should share that with the class. Anyways, despite mixed reviews and generally poor reception from critics and people unfamiliar with the series, this movie was a massive success. It made a global box office earning of $130 million in its opening weekend, and would go on to make roughly $300 million by the end of its run, making it the highest grossing Blumhouse film ever, making more than movies such as Split, all of their Halloween movies, Get Out, and Glass. Wait, Split was Blumhouse? I don't know why I literally looked that up. That was okay, I'm sorry. It was also the highest grossing horror film of the entire year, beating movies like Scream 6, Megan, The Nun 2, Saw X, The Exorcist, Talk to Me, and Evil Dead Rise. So yeah, this movie was kind of a big deal, and it's to no one's surprise that a sequel was very quickly confirmed soon after, a movie which is now in pre-production, by the way. The movie also benefited the games fairly well, as on Halloween, FNAF 1 reached an all-time peak of concurrent players on Steam. The series was so mainstream at this point in time that it was finally acknowledged by none other than Chuck E. Cheese, although they still refused to mention it explicitly, as employees were told to respond to questions about the movie with a simple, "What's that? I've never heard of it." Rick and Morty also spoofed the movie's poster, something that I'm sure made Josh Hutcherson very happy.
Rick and Morty. Alive.
It was also revealed that there's going to be a YouTube series for the movie, the first of these to be revealed to us being Doug out of all characters. I don't think that all the characters in this wave have yet to be revealed, so I'm interested to know what you all think. Which characters do you think will make an appearance in this line, and which ones do you most want? Personally, I would eat up a Yellow Rabbit YouTube's figurine, which I'm sure is inevitable. Funko is also supposed to release a movie wave, which I believe will somewhat serve as a remake of the first wave of Funko figurines. I'm really hoping that they actually create a lineup that isn't, well, awful, seeing as Funko seems to have a really hard time deciding which characters to make into merch, at least judging by this horrid ruin line. All in all, every single event relating to the movie, as well as the movie simply finally releasing, are absolutely more than worthy of the titles of crazy-ass moments in FNAF history. But seeing as many people refer to 2023 as the year of FNAF, surely there had to have been more noticeable events other than the movie. And oh yes, there was. I didn't even think it was possible for this many insane FNAF-related things to happen all in the same year, but this series is all about proving me wrong at any opportunity it can find. So what about the moments that weren't related to the movie? How do they hold up compared to one Freddy Faz Brawl or the Thievery of 23? In terms of media, 2023 saw the release of one major DLC, one mainline game, one spin-off game, one Roblox game, one theatrical movie, two fanverse-related games, one fanverse game cancellation, 5 books, 3 graphic novels, a collectible fighting tabletop game, and countless amounts of merchandise. So yeah, a fair amount of content. All on top of that, the community could not seem to keep itself from falling apart often, creating some iconic controversies and garnering more attention from Big Man Scott. Let's begin with a recap of what Steel Wool Studios has been up to in 2023, seeing as they are essentially the franchise's adopted parents now, and practically every new game we get is from them. These guys gave us a DLC of a decently lengthy size, as well as the sequel to the VR game Help Wanted, something that was announced on pretty short notice. This was the year that we got confirmation and lore on a brand new main villain, a character known as the Mimic. A story and tales of the Pizzaplex sharing the same name as the antagonist was leaked, causing excitement to buzz around the character. Meanwhile, Steel Wool states that Ruin is intended to be more scary and dreadful than the original security breach, which excited many fans who were disappointed with the horror aspect of the original game. Around this time, none other than the regular Sauce got hired as an official creature fabricator and designer at Steel Wool, something that, well, not surprising, was still very interesting and well-deserved, seeing as Sauce was probably the most highly regarded cosplayer and prop creator in the community at the time, most notable for his recent scarily accurate Glamrock Freddy cosplay who looks absolutely perfect. Not long after that, the first gameplay trailer for the DLC, Ruin, was released, teasing a new protagonist named Cassie, and a new variant of the fan favorite daycare attendant, this being the character that the fans had previously dubbed to be Eclipse. This would be revealed to be their official name after the release of the game. This trailer was pretty exciting for many, reaching #1 on trending. It sparked many theories, mainly surrounding the character Gregory, who is trapped in the Pizzaplex for some reason. People were skeptical as to whether or not this was actually Gregory, as this character would have literally no reason to be here ever again. This combined with the recent development of the Mimic character led many to believe that they could be making an appearance in the DLC, meaning we could possibly get our first actual physical look at this character. A release month of July is given, and not much is shown between the time of the trailer and the release, other than a few teaser images revealed to Dawko in his chat during a charity stream. A day before launch, a large amount of files were leaked, such as voice lines and item icons. This revealed the design of a very long-awaited character, as well as a few out-of-context voice lines, my favorite of which being,
"You want me to reboot you? With this?"
which led to a plethora of Fortnite jokes. Either way, this only made people even more excited for the contents of the game. July 25th arrives, and the Ruin DLC is released for free on PC to anyone who owned the original game. At this time, Security Breach's concurrent players reached an all-time high at 14,000 people. But what about the actual content of the DLC? Well, if you're watching this, it's highly likely you're already familiar with the entirety of Ruin, so I'll briefly touch on the most impactful moments for the community. The Mimic was finally revealed, and their importance in the mainline story is made apparent, the character instantly becoming a fan favorite. This game also saw the acknowledgement and design reveal of Glamrock Bonnie, a character who had previously been shadowed in mystery. We also learned that Glamrock Bonnie and Freddy were very close and loving in nature, which started a debate on whether or not these two characters may be in an actual canonical romantic relationship. If you're interested in this topic, I do have a full video about it, as well as the nature of FNAF shipping culture in general, so you should totally check it out, even though it's kind of old. We also see moments like the prototype Freddy reveal, the Monty AI being really stupid, and Roxy being our primary animatronic guardian rather than Freddy. This game would actually pave the way to one of the wildest controversies of the entire year. At this time, one of the most popular fan projects, one that was part of the Fanverse initiative, was FNAF Plus, an updated remake of the original game with brand new models, visuals, and gameplay. The developer of this game, FNAF, or Phil, was known to be a somewhat critical, comedically intense individual, something that a lot of the fandom perceived as being mean or toxic, as the toxic slime branding would indicate. Either way, he was still heavily regarded in the community for being the developer of one of the most anticipated projects, and many people tolerated him even if they didn't necessarily like his personality. Phil was known to be very critical of the FNAF franchise, something that led him to remaking the games in the first place. He also didn't tend to like the younger fan base, something that is completely reasonable. As such, when Ruin released, he didn't really enjoy it, tweeting about how he found it boring. The fandom was enraged at the thought of someone so well regarded in the community having an opinion that differed from theirs. So one thing led to another, and people started getting harassed no matter what stance they took on the issue. People were being sent incriminating messages and images, and death threats for no reason other than agreeing or disagreeing with Phil's take on the game. This has to be one of the stupidest controversies this fandom has ever seen, because Phil quite literally didn't do anything wrong, and most people arguing with him were children who couldn't stand the thought of a Fanverse initiative member not liking FNAF. As such, Phil was essentially ran out of his position, having to cancel FNAF Plus entirely, a game that would have likely been close to releasing, and distance himself from the franchise entirely. At the very least, this situation seems to have set Phil free from the shackles of being a heavily regarded member in the FNAF community, a fate that I likely wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. This controversy took the main stage for quite a bit, so when the fire was disrupted by a new game announcement, people were very surprised, seeing as we only just saw the release of a Steel Wool game. Even more shocking was the fact that this new game was set to release in 2023 despite only being announced the summer of. This game was, of course, Help Wanted 2, the sequel to Steel Wool's first ever FNAF game, that no one expected. The game was announced on a summer PlayStation State of Play, and confirmed that the game would likely be touching up on games missed in the original. The trailer footage showcased the elevator from Sister Location, confirming that the game would make an appearance. Many people also suspected Pizzeria Sim and security breach levels, an assumption that would later be proven to be correct. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Steel Wool was working on something pretty huge for a certain convention. PAX is a very popular gaming convention, one that has been seeing a lot more content ever since E3 practically ceased to exist. This convention has two locations, one on the East Coast and one on the West. PAX East is typically in March, while PAX West is in early August. Seeing as Steel Wool is based in California and has many employees in Washington State, where PAX West is held each year, the convention was a golden opportunity for them to reveal new updates on their new game, as well as promote the movie that was soon to release. It was revealed that they would be attending, and we saw a glimpse at the construction of the booth. At this time, we finally saw the work of DeRegular Sauce in use, and his role in the studio became more apparent. A few props from the booth created by him were showcased, props that looked absolutely stunning, exact replicas of the ones in-game. When the day of the convention approaches, the booth is packed. People waited hours just to get in and be able to play an exclusive sneak peek of Help Wanted 2, all while Sauce brought out his Glamrock Freddy cosplay, accompanied by Kellen Goff to interact with fans. This entire event was a crazy-ass moment in FNAF history, made even more so by the sick decorations created by Sauce, such as this baby head and this moving eclipse animatronic. Seriously, oh my god, this looks perfect. Although filming of the demo was strictly prohibited, a bit later Dako was allowed to share footage, showcasing Sister Location levels and the carnival level with Moon. The gameplay trailer dropped soon after, as well as the cover art featuring a rather strange selection of characters. Some people really liked this cover, while others did not for a multitude of reasons. Regardless, the release date only continued to come closer, and soon the game would release on December 14th. Pretty much nothing matters in this game other than Vanny. Oh my god, Vanny, oh my god, look at her. Oh, Look, it's Fanny, it's her. Yeah, she shows up for like 3 seconds, but, yeah, that's objectively the best part of the game. I don't think we need to talk about anything else. But yeah, as far as Steel releases go, that's pretty much it. Unless you want to count the fireplace video they posted with the least satisfying fireplace noises I have ever heard. The fact that we got so much content from them at all this year is absolutely astonishing, but this video isn't over yet, as we still have a few wild moments that I can't really put into a single category. One of these in particular is probably one of the wildest things this community has ever seen. So let's strap in and go through these last few crazy ass moments. First off, on a very lighthearted note, Scott Cawthon casually dropped that he enjoys the Undertale OST and frequently listens to it while working. Who knows how many FNAF games have been created under the influence of Megalovania. Click Team, the engine that Scott made the original FNAF games on, also started teasing a new project around this time. They seem to have been doing something with this Lolbit character they created, and posted a few sneak peeks and posters and whatnots. It's not known as of now what this project is going to be, although many speculate that it may be a new mainline game, made by Click Team rather than Steelwool. Either way, I'm excited for whatever this entails. Last year saw the release of many iconic FNAF fan songs such as Freddy Scary and Extremely Creepy Tonight. We've also gotten a wide variety of merchandise this year. A lot of really good merch from brands such as U2's and Hex, and some really, absurd merch from brands such as Just Toys and Funko. Nothing surprising there. Something that was also extremely interesting but not talked about nearly enough as it should have been was this FNAF haunted house attraction in Saudi Arabia, featuring this massive sign with Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Endos, and FNAF plus Freddy. Okay. This haunted house included people in costumes, actual animatronics, albeit rather goofy looking ones, and a lot of very charming sets and props laid about. I won't go into too much detail because I would highly recommend this video from MR Springs going over the specifics of this attraction. It's a very fun watch and my good buddy always deserves the recognition. But I know what you're all here to see. Perhaps the craziest thing to happen relating to FNAF this year other than the movie happened on the final month on a fateful December 20th. On this very same day, Ban 6 dropped, already making for an interesting start to the day. What no one could have possibly guessed, however, was that on the very same day, an official FNAF game would be released, and it would somehow be even worse than the Ban game. Of course, I'm talking about the official Roblox FNAF game, Five Nights at Freddy's Survival Crew. Now, I did play this game a very short amount, but I was unfortunately not able to record anything as while it released. I was watching Dags play Ban 7 with Springs. We were going to record something about it after Dags was done, but as you know, it was taken down rather quickly. Because of this, the footage you see in the background belongs to Fusion Z Gamer, as I have no footage of my own to show. So credit where credit is due. Let's get into the insanity of how this game came to be, as well as how it ceased to exist the very day of its publication. I'm unsure as to how this thing got properly discovered, but one way or another, several news accounts started posting about an official FNAF Roblox game being uncovered. This was pretty big news, as this series had been going on for almost a decade, and we haven't gotten any kind of official Roblox collaboration, something that a lot of companies have been turning to in recent times. Many people began playing this game and were quickly met with absolute slop. I'm not kidding, practically no one genuinely enjoyed this thing. There were many reasons as to why people weren't fond of the game, but I believe these were the biggest reasons as to why many people disliked it. The most scummy of these reasons has to be the downright ridiculous pricing for what essentially just is even worse AR skins. At least with many AR skins, you can likely grind up to get them and don't have to spend any actual money. But these guys were extremely expensive and could only be purchased with Robux, which, as you probably know, is a paid currency. These things are not worth the money, as they all look like absolute overpriced dog water. They also straight up stole several designs, such as this Fredbear and FNAF plus Freddy, who shows up sometimes for some reason. Why does it always FNAF plus Freddy? FNAF plus having been cancelled for months at the point of this game's release. There's random lazy fizzy art slapped everywhere in places that it makes absolutely no sense for it to be. Like art of the twisted animatronics just decaled onto walls for no reason. The animatronics use these janky, generic-looking zombie animations that are forced onto their models, which make them look, really stupid. The lighting, textures, and models are also nothing to be impressed by, typically looking very bland and cheap. The animatronics can also hang themselves for some reason, and there's strange lore implications that indicate this being a canon FNAF AR sequel. As for the actual gameplay itself, it was just another bland, uninspired, asymmetrical horror game stealing its entire gameplay premise from Dead by Daylight. And yes, I understand that many asymmetrical horror games are extremely similar to this game, and that does not make them all Dead by Daylight clones. Games like IDV, Texas Chainsaw, Friday the 13th, Project Playtime, fucking secret neighbor are all their completely own thing despite sharing similar gameplay loops. But this game offers nothing new to the table, and is just shameless. An animatronic chases you around while you fix things, and if you get caught, you get put in a springlock suit. I think the only remotely original thing about this game is that if you get defeated, you become one of the animatronics, which could be interesting if every other aspect of the game wasn't god-awful. But this was not the last of the controversies for this game, as on the very day of its release, the game was privated, and Scott Cawthon once again had something to say. He stated that after approving a cosmetic for the game, the developers mistook this as a heads up to release the beta of the game, which is an absurd thing to imagine. Somehow, the communication was poor enough, and the game's beta ended up releasing an extremely unpolished and unfinished game. But what many people don't bring up when talking about this game is that it has actually been in development for over a year. Yes, there are leaks of this game dating back to September of 2022. They had over a year to work on, improve on, and perfect this game, and it looks just as bad as it did back in 2022. I don't know how this isn't more commonly spoken about, seeing as the developers of this thing spoke as if it had barely any time to develop before they decided to drop the beta. Either way, they decided to completely scrap the game and rework it from scratch at the request of Scott, which was probably the best course of action they could have taken. However, I don't think they issued any refunds to anyone who spent actual money on this game, which is just nothing short of scummy. Regardless of how the situation ended, the fact that it started in the first place is both hilarious and also a little bit disappointing, as Scott does not seem to know how to get himself proper representatives, and there were probably hundreds of kids scammed out of their money after purchasing Black Iced Frost Bear for $15. I hope the final product is actually of somewhat of a higher standard, seeing as this disappointed a lot of fans. It also would have sucked to see new crappy AR skin merch get pumped out in favor of characters fans have been waiting on for years. Whether or not you were infuriated by or indifferent towards the situation, or even if you enjoyed the game, this was certainly an amusing way to end off 2023 for FNAF, and would make for the year's final crazy-ass moment in FNAF history. Well, we're barely 2 weeks into 2024, and we've already had a few more insane moments for this community. I look forward to this franchise's future, and I'm sure this year will be plentiful in crazy moments, especially with the second movie starting production very soon. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, as I have a plethora of notes that can be made into more crazy-ass moments in FNAF history. And I also had a lot of fun doing research for and writing this video. As always, thank you so much to all my Quinna fans over at Patreon, especially Jeevan2008, Cinetic, DCT6113, Loose the Goose, Rube72, Talkbox PNG, Maxwell Fusion, The Blue Guy, Dags, and Floofy Banjo. Thank you all so much for watching this first ever episode of Crazy Ass Moments in FNAF history. I've been quinnamon, and I think I'm gonna use all the proceeds of this video to buy myself one of these Chick-fil-A breakfast platters. Bye!